She was just a mother, cradling her baby, exhausted but grateful to finally be heading home. For her, this flight should have been nothing more than a quiet journey in the sky. But in an instant, everything changed. A flight attendant's anger, a slap that silenced the cabin, and the cruel reminder that prejudice doesn't stop, even at 30,000 feet. What no one on that plane knew was that this mother carried a truth that would turn the humiliation she faced into a moment the entire airline would never forget. How did one act of hatred lead to a stunning twist no one saw coming? The plane was full, the hum of engines blending with the chatter of passengers settling in. For most, it was just another flight. But for her, every glance carried weight, every whisper felt heavier than it should. A black mother, holding her baby close, she knew what it meant to be watched, judged, doubted, yet she hoped this time would be different. That hope shattered quickly. The flight attendant's eyes lingered on her longer than anyone else. Requests for help were brushed aside with cold indifference, while others nearby were greeted with polite smiles. When her baby cried, the stares grew sharper, and the whispers turned into grumbles, as if her child's need for comfort was an inconvenience to everyone around. It didn't stop there. Each small slight cut deeper, an ignored request for water, a tray pushed toward her with unnecessary force, a tone of voice laced with disdain. Others noticed, but no one spoke up. Silence filled the cabin, a silence that screamed louder than words. And then came the breaking point. In a moment of tension, the flight attendant's hand struck her, a sound that cracked through the quiet like thunder. Gasps erupted. Her baby wailed. But even louder than the cries was the unshakable truth that this wasn't just anger, it was the raw face of prejudice, laid bare at 30,000 feet. The humiliation burned. She wanted to disappear, to shield her child from the cruelty of strangers. Yet beneath the pain, something stirred. A strength, a fire, a refusal to let this act of hatred define her or pass unnoticed. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some avoided her eyes, others looked on with pity, but still, no one intervened. The weight of isolation pressed down harder than the strike itself. She was alone, it seemed, in a world where justice was too often delayed, too often denied. Or was she? Because what no one on that plane realized was that she carried with her not only her child, but a truth powerful enough to flip the story on its head. A truth that would leave the very airline trembling, and turn her silence into something unforgettable. The injustice had been revealed. But the real story was only just beginning. The cabin was frozen in shock, but for her, time didn't stop, it collapsed. The sting of the slap burned across her face, but what seared deeper was the weight of humiliation, the knowledge that her child's first memory of a flight might be the sound of their mother being struck. Fear gripped her chest, but it was laced with something stronger, rage, sharp and unrelenting. The flight attendant stood over her, defiant, as if daring her to protest. Passengers shifted uneasily, some fumbling for their phones, others lowering their eyes as if silence could shield them from complicity. The injustice was suffocating. Here she was, a paying passenger, a mother protecting her baby, and still, she was treated as if her presence was a burden. Every second stretched longer, heavier. Should she cry out? Should she fight back? The voice inside her screamed that doing either might only bring more judgment, more pain. That's the cruelty of racism, it punishes the victim twice. Once in the act, and again in the silence that follows. But what no one could see, what no one could possibly imagine, was that beneath the tears and trembling hands was a truth too powerful to ignore. Her husband was not just another man waiting at the gate. He was the very person who controlled the skies above them. The airline, the policies, the power, all of it flowed through him. And soon, the flight attendant, and every silent witness, would discover what it meant to humiliate the wrong woman. Because this moment was no longer just about her pain, it was about to become a story that would shake the entire airline to its core. When the plane finally touched down, the truth could no longer be hidden. The whispers that had filled the cabin turned into shock as word spread. This woman's husband wasn't just waiting at the gate. He was the man who owned the very airline they had flown on. The same company that had allowed her humiliation to unfold in plain sight now stood exposed, with nowhere to hide from accountability. For the flight attendant, consequences came swiftly. But for the mother, the scars were not so easily erased. The sting of the slap would fade, but the memory of being singled out, treated as less than human in front of her child, would remain forever. It was a reminder of the cruel truth many already know. Money, power, and status can shield you after the fact, but they can't erase the pain of the moment. This story wasn't just about one woman on one flight. It was about the millions of silent moments that never make headlines. The ignored complaints. The looks of suspicion. The voices that go unheard. Racism in the air is only a reflection of racism on the ground, an injustice that follows people wherever they go. Her husband's power turned the tables, yes. But should it really take influence, wealth, or status to demand dignity? Should justice depend on who you're married to? Because for every story like this one, there are countless others where no spotlight ever shines, where no reckoning ever comes. So the question remains, how many more stories will it take before silence turns into change?